Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome back to another episode of the Shrimp Tank. We come to you virtually from Seattle, the Pacific Northwest, and today we go down Interstate 5 into the Bay Area. If you want to learn how to start, grow, or run a successful business, this right here is the podcast for you. We like to say we're the podcast of record. It's where street smarts and book smarts collide. Hello again, everyone. I'm Dan Whedon, and my co-host today is the incomparable Linda Popke, coming to us from the Bay Area. We have a very exciting show today. Our guests are Kevin and Dana Rindal. Vimocity was originally founded as a side project by husband and wife duo Kevin and Dana. At the time, they were looking for a way to provide local utility employees with the same proven injury prevention principles that Dr. Kevin had developed in his work with the U.S. Olympic team. I'm already excited to talk about that, Linda. I can already tell you. After the initial launch in the back of Kevin and Dana's sports medicine clinic, the team grew and spent the next several years focused on creating a solution that could be scaled across any organization while making a powerful impact in any individual's life. Kevin and Dana, welcome. We are excited to talk to you, and we'll be with you in just a minute. Listen, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, YouTube. Linda, it's my new favorite word. What are we?
We are ubiquitous.
Of course we are. So we come to you from about a dozen different cities. Atlanta is the mothership, but we're also in Boca Raton and Boston and Charlotte. It's not Charlotte. Where are we from? Anyway, we're somewhere in South Carolina. Charleston, that's it. Now listen, we think we're the most fun and the best. Don't tell any of the other cities, but go ahead and listen to all of them. Linda, before we bring on Kevin and Dana, you know, we're not live streaming today. People are going to figure this out at some point. We are not live streaming today because we just ran into a whole bunch of problems, didn't we?
You know, it was our cousin Murphy showed up. You know, Murphy's Law. What will go wrong will. Can go wrong will.
Yeah, I was up in Whistler, British Columbia. In fact, I was hanging out with our other co-host friend, Phil Simchich, in a global mastermind group. But none of the masterminds could figure out why the lawnmower guy came at the exact time that we were going to record, or why literally it was hard to get my iPad to get any type of technology working. So we scrapped it, said the heck with it. We'd rather have a good show late than a crappy show early or on time. Linda, has stuff like that ever happened to you where the best laid plans?
Never technology. I mean, I have a keyboard on my Mac that isn't working right now. So it happens all the time. You know,
In fact, I just got scared to make sure that yes, we are recording. Can you imagine that? We would have all this fun and we were. So I figured we've got to be ready to go today technologically.
Yep.
You know what happens with a lot of my clients, Linda, is some of the bad things that happen is not necessarily technology based, but like breaks. People break bones. People get injured. That causes issues. Do you ever have clients that's happened to?
Oh yeah, or they get injured, they fall, they do something they didn't think was going to be difficult, like they go skiing and they come back and not all the bones.
Or they sit in a non-ergonomically designed chair, something like that. Well, our guests today, I'm going to bring in Kevin and Dana Rindal. Kevin and Dana, welcome. I'm guessing that you deal once in a while with injuries because that's your business. Would you mind giving everybody a little bit of an idea of what Vimocity is and what you do to help people?
Of course. And talk about unpredictability. I think that's the name of entrepreneurship. It's how do you adapt quickly. But to give everyone a little bit of background on how we started, I have a sports medicine background. I spent 15 years working clinically We had a clinic in the U District in Seattle, Washington, and I spent 10 of those years working with the United States Olympic Swim Team as part of their sports medicine staff. And that caught the attention of a local utility here in Seattle. And so we launched a program with about 1,100 of their field-based workers. In that first year, they dropped their musculoskeletal injuries. So those are like sprains, strains, or back injuries, shoulder injuries, by over 53%. And it had a huge impact on the business. And so that really was the origin of our company.
Wow. So that's great. Now, obviously climbing a utility pole sounds dangerous to me, but then there's those of us like Dan and me, we are sitting at our desks all day or a good part of a day. And I understand that we can get injured just from sitting here. So talk to us about what we need to do to stay healthy while we never leave the office.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because actually people who sit tend to have more pain than those who are actually physically active. When we sit, we don't move our muscles and joints. And we have a saying that if you don't use it, you lose it. So it's really important to incorporate movement health into your day in order to feel your best. So we work with a lot of office and desk-based workers, or people that drive quite a bit, both helpful.
So I'm going to ask we're going to talk a lot about what exactly your business does, but it's intriguing to me that you really started out your career in sports medicine. And I mean, to a point that you were, working with Olympic athletes, and somehow out of the back, I thought originally when I read it, it was going to be out of the back of your garage, but basically out of the back of your clinic, you developed this business that is helping any type of organization deal with the prevention and the recovery of workplace injuries. How has that transformation gone? I mean, how did that go? I got to believe there were some little bumpy roads along the way potentially, but talk about that transformation. No bumps.
No, it's easy.
And I'll even back it up just a little bit. Like, I mean, working with athletes was my career ambition, and it's something that I just have found so much joy with, in being able to see people perform at their highest level. But I grew up in a small town here in Washington. Everyone in my family is a farmer, fisherman, or a logger. And I just remember very clearly my grandpa, he was a pipe fitter out at a refinery, and then he raised cattle on the side. And he'd come in at the end of the day, and he was 65 years old, and he could hardly stand up straight at the end of the day. And as a 10-year-old, I remember him saying, man, this is what it looks like getting old. And so that was like imprinted in my mind that as we get old, we're just going to break down. But then when I started working with, not only athletes, but just patients who do, the type of work that we now serve those customers, I just realized, man, it is totally unacceptable for people to get to that point in their career and be completely broken down, because of the stuff that we developed for these elite athletes was not rocket science. Anyone could incorporate these tools into their life. And really what it came down to is that we recognize that for most people who suffer from pain, stiffness, and soreness in their muscles and joints, for an overwhelming majority of those people, they just have no framework in terms of how to take care of their muscle and joint health. We teach people how to brush their teeth and change their oil in their car and do maintenance. But when it comes to like having a owner's manual for how to take care of your body, people just don't have that framework. And so our whole medical system is focused on reactive care. It's waiting till something turns into a problem and then we deal with it. And so we just saw an opportunity in the workforce that, man, if we could bring these preventative approaches that help people not only stay more resilient on the job, but also be able to do the things that they care about outside of work. Because at the end of the day, like, our happiness, our quality of life is completely tied to our ability to move well and do those things without limitation. And so we just saw a huge fit for us to bring this passion to help people live their highest level of life with an actual business that helps the businesses that we serve hit their business goals and objectives.
So Dana, you mentioned about movement-based health. So can you talk, what is movement-based health? Can I not sit down at all during the day? Do I need to be running around all the time? It seems to me that I'm going to get some other injuries. So what does that mean?
Yeah, it's a great question. Movement-based health is really your ability to move and feel your best during the day. So like not having neck stiffness or low back stiffness. And so what we teach people is just these short movement breaks that you can take. And then also there's other pieces like ergonomics and lifestyle choices that really impact how you feel. So having the confidence to go on a hike or, go on a trip or a plane or whatever that might look like for you. It's just people feeling confident and good enough in their own bodies to be able to go live their best life. So that's how we typically speak of it. Our mission is to really help folks live their best life through movement health. But thankfully for these companies, injuries tend to be over 40% of all their injuries. So there's a huge reason for companies to actually care about the same issue as well.
So quick follow-up question, Dan. So are you working with physical therapists and occupational therapists, or how do you actually integrate into the kind of existing system?
Yeah, so we're actually a software-based solution.
Ah.
So we have a platform, a technology platform, and we deploy the content to that platform and then distribute it into the infrastructure of the companies that we work with. So there are some like consultations and stuff like that, but for the most part, yeah, we scale through the technology.
So, I was rapidly trying to go down on my phone on IMDb because I couldn't remember the name of this Michael Keaton movie, and you'll probably know it. But when I was on, it goes back to like the early 1980s. I was looking at your website and it made me think, Linda, if you remember the name of this Michael Keaton movie where they had all of the workers doing exercises you remember that?
I don't.
I can't remember the name of the movie, so I'm sorry to Michael Keaton. But one of the things that they were basing it off, I think either the Toyota way, but it was a Japanese company, and all of the manufacturing people and everybody, even if they were in the offices, were out in the yard or in the plant. They're doing exercises. And as I was looking at your website, this Michael Keaton movie came back to me. So I guess my question is, when you're talking about movement based, is this something that you would recommend to businesses of any type, but maybe especially to those who do have, whether they're in manufacturing or in construction, they do have some issues around mobility. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, exactly. And so what you're talking about is oftentimes what's referred to as stretch and flex. It's like that daily warm up at the start of the day. And that's a really important part of this whole ecosystem, is creating the framework so that people can prepare their bodies for activities. One of the things that we know, though, is that a lot of the stretch and flex methodologies is based on stuff that is, over the last 10, 15 years, we've realized in sports science and exercise science, it's probably not the best way to prepare the body for activity. And so if any of you have used like a foam roller or something like that, we actually teach people how to use handheld rollers to actually focus on diaphragmatic breathing. And instead of static stretching, do more dynamic movements of their joints. So they're taking them through a full range of motion. And that's just like one piece of the puzzle. The bigger thing is that we have to teach people the why, because again, it all goes back to that education. Most people will just go through the motions unless they understand why they're doing something. And so we start with education, start to build the habits on a daily basis. But then, like Dana talked about, we focus on things like ergonomics, body positioning, education. And then we also get into like hydration, nutrition, sleep, mental health, stress reduction. All those things actually impact the way that a human's body recovers or it repairs. And so that's a really critical part of the equation as well. And so that education then is housed in our platform and distributed.
I love it. And like I said, I just because of what I do, I'm eager to continually learn more about what you're doing. By the way, you'll both be happy to know that I do non-static stretching before I play golf now, because I've learned that the static is not. So I do the non-static. I don't think it's helped with my chipping and putting, but I think I feel better at the end of the day. I guess that's all that matters. So listen, we have to, I can't believe it's gone so fast. We're going to take a short break to hear from today's Spotlight sponsor. And when we come back with our guests, Kevin and Dana Rindal, for our Hot or Not section of the show, I'm actually going to ask Dana to talk about the difference between men and women. I'm sure she can't wait. You should be eager to hear her too. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. And I get to do the ad read today. So listen up, because this is important information. Have you ever said to yourself, I'd love to write or publish a book, but I just don't have the time? Does it sound like you? Maybe you have a compelling story to share or valuable advice for clients and prospects. If only you could get that story into a published format. Think you don't have time to write a book? Think your writing isn't polished enough to get your message across? Think this sounds too overwhelming? Think again. At Leverage to Market Associates, we help aspiring authors transform a great book idea into an attractive published work. If you've written most of your book, we can help edit your work and drive it through the production process. If you're not sure where to start, we'll coach you through the process to organize your thoughts and create a compelling book outline. And if you're just not comfortable writing a book yourself, we can ghostwrite it for you. Contact us for a complimentary evaluation of your nonfiction book concept today and bring your book to life.
All right. Well, thank you, Dan, and welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area and beyond. I'm Linda Popke, and we're here today with Kevin and Dana Rindal. And our next segment is Hot or Not.
And Kevin and Dana, this is where Linda and I are going to pepper you with questions about business, about life, certainly about the business of movement and what you work on. And then you get to tell us whether it's hot or not and why or why not. This might be more of a true or false, Dana. I'm going to start with you. So you can say hot, not true, false, or whatever you want. OSHA requirements are based on the average male body, thus creating more challenges for the female body. True or false?
Oh, I don't know the answer to that question. That's a great question.
Does Kevin know?
Do you know?
I don't know with confidence, but I'm going to assume true.
Okay, so I don't know if I've ever stumped anybody on this one. Plead the Fifth is usually the one, but let me ask you this. And because I believe that that's true, just in the work that we've done in the past with OSHA,
that's fascinating.
Is that they use the male body as the kind of the foundation. From your standpoint, that probably causes problems, doesn't it?
Well, it does, except we're on the prevention side. So our goal is to completely prevent things before they become an injury. And OSHA has recommendations on ergonomics, but no requirements. So we don't deal quite as much in the OSHA world, I would say.
Okay, but prevention is where it's all at.
Absolutely, like that's the piece that we play in. Once it's an injury, we don't do anything.
Okay, so on the prevention thing, hot or not, standing workstations. Should we get rid of the desk and go get them, or is it more bother than it's worth?
No, we're standing at a standing workshop right now, or workstation right now. I think they're awesome. And it's what the research is showing is that you can't do all of one thing or all of another. So a good mix between the sitting and standing is great. So typically for me, I recommend that people stand for maybe an hour at a time and then shift to sitting.
So hot or not, the fitness trackers on your watch, however you use, I happen to use an Apple Watch, but things that keep track of your movement, your standing, your exercise, all of that, is that hot or not?
Hot if it makes you like actually do it and it helps you. So I'm gonna go with hot on that one.
So let me ask, because I tend to use it more out of personal use, but I can imagine that people could end up sitting a lot or having a lot of non-movement. In part of your education, I'm guessing that you talk about, hey, it's important to maybe get up every hour or something like that. And I know my watch will tell me, hey, dummy, you've been sitting too long. So I'm just wondering if those are things that you can see as helpful.
For sure, any type of nudge like that is super helpful. And again, we try to advocate for people just moving and incorporating movement into their day. And it doesn't have to be exercise, because sometimes that barrier of sweating is enough where people are like, I'm just going to sit here. So any type of movement is good. And that's a great tool to nudge you and remind you.
So I'm going to ask you to, as a follow-up, what do you mean by any type of movement? Do I have to be standing to move? Can I just be moving my arms? I mean, what do you mean by movement?
Yeah, it could be a movement where you're just lifting your leg and moving it out to the side. It could be, walking up the stairs to go to the bathroom upstairs rather than the downstairs bathroom. It could be taking a stretching break. And as a follow-up, it's not that stretching is bad. It's just that maybe it's not the best pre-activity warm-up. And so, again, we can incorporate different components throughout our day as it fits into our life.
So I want to ask a little bit more about Vimocity, and I believe I'm saying it correctly. Am I?
Yeah.
Perfect. Husband and wife duo, what are your roles within the company? How many employees do you have? And what kind of people businesses are usually seeking you out? So let's start out with, what do you do? What are your roles there? How big are you employee wise? And how are people finding you?
Yeah, so I'm the COO, and Kevin, I'll let you.
Yeah, and I'm the CEO, and we have 18 employees currently. And we, in terms of our different roles, it's funny, Dana has more of she's an MBA and CPA, but she really has a strong mind for operations. So she's focused much more on the operations. And then I focus more on the finances and a lot of the communication with customers and the sales component.
And so talk a little bit about, are businesses finding you? I mean, do they wake up one day and say, oh, we got to get more movement in our business. And so we got to find a company that does this. How are you finding your clients, or how are they finding you?
Yeah, so typically the problem customers first have is, again, like on average, 40% of their injuries are related to muscle and joint injuries. And so they have this issue, and they usually find us right now through word of mouth is like the number one way. So conferences, word of mouth, references from our current customers. And I would say that's primary, but we mainly work with utility and clean energy customers. And then we have adjacent markets in like warehousing, construction, and transportation. So that's our primary focus.
Yeah, and we range from about 200 employees is our smallest, and then all the way up to a company with over 5,000 employees. Okay. So pretty wide range.
So the two of you work together now. You worked together when you did the sports medicine. So hot or not working with your spouse? Are there any issues? You're still together.
Good question. Yeah, it's actually fantastic. I would say hot on that one. It's been really fun. We've had a good time, and we're on year like 12 or 13 working together. So it works super well for us.
Yeah, definitely hot.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad you agreed, Kevin. That's an important that's an important.
That could have been awkward if you said not.
So I'm curious, because you talked about your roles. You have 18 employees, I think I heard you say. They must vary in roles from an educational standpoint. It sounds like they're probably the ones who are going out on job sites, or not job sites, but client sites, and doing some of the training. How are you finding? I mean, employees are tough now to find. I know staffing has been an issue. You might be going through that same exact staffing issue, but I'm guessing that your employees need to have some certain level of skill certification. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so our team, I mean, what's so funny, because we're a technology platform primarily, most of our employees are in product and content.
Oh, okay.
Customer success. And we have 2 coaches that do anything on site. But yeah, for the most part, we're really a technology based group as far as like our demographics go in employee base.
But definitely hiring has definitely been a pain point, especially in the Seattle area, just because there's such a war for talent, especially when it comes to product and technology. And so we have actually hired people. A couple people on our team are from the East Coast, and we've just really realized that in this new COVID world, they don't necessarily have to be in Seattle for us to effectively develop our technology. So that's been a huge win for us.
Yeah. But recruiting, I feel like you never stop. I mean, it's something you're always working on. You're always looking for people. We're very mission driven. So the reason people come work is because they really want to have technology that has positive impact on other people's lives. And that's really the driving force behind the team that we have. And we are so grateful for them. They are unbelievably talented. So couldn't be here without them.
Hey, Linda, do you mind if I ask a quick follow-up question?
Go for it.
You know, and that's interesting that you say that you're technology based, you have a platform, you have education and on all of that. You mentioned that's kind of on the small end, you're looking at 200 employees. Do you anticipate ever having programs, whether it's just through education, for the smaller employees, the ones who have 10 employees, 12 and 15 employees, something like that? Because I got to believe that they have needs too.
Yeah, we're starting to actually move in that direction. If we were to talk about like pain points and bumps in the road, one of the big pain points is that we didn't have a technology platform to scale. And so we were doing on-site services for every single customer. And we were traveling to like 50 locations for one customer per year. And it just was really draining. And so our big initiative was to basically go from 90% service-based, 10% SaaS to 90% SaaS, 10% service. And we've over the last 2 years, we've made that change. And so now we're at a point where we have the content and the infrastructure that we could start to support some of those smaller companies. And so that, I think that's really exciting, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what size your company is, like people need this education and resource. And so we're excited to bring that to market.
So it sounds like the pandemic kind of gave you good timing, that it forced you to work more virtually.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, it was a game changer from that perspective.
Yeah.
So, and I will say, you know, the benefits to the companies, like why they do this, really, I mean, they care about their employees, like the culture is really important, but they do have employees that are more productive. They feel better on the job. They feel cared about, and they drive down costs. So it ends up being this incredible win for the company and the employee, which is why most end up, you know, working with us.
Oh, Dan, we lost you there for a
No,
second.
I just put my phone, I was on silent at the mic and I didn't realize that. So, you know what, this might be a great time to take our second break. We're going to take that short break to hear from our corporate sponsors. And when we come back with our guests, Kevin and Dana Rindal, for our Plead the Fifth section of the show, we're going to find out what their biggest weaknesses are. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. And Plead the Fifth is brought to you by our corporate sponsors: Ideal Life 360, Cornerstone Financial, First Underwriters Insurance, the Kitsap Sun Newspaper Group, BC Fitness Studio, and Upstart Group. Please visit our website at www.shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle to learn more about these terrific companies. Linda, back to the show.
All right, Dan, welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area and beyond. I'm Linda Popke, this week's co-host. Our guests today are Kevin and Dana Rindal, and our next segment is Plead the Fifth.
We're going to turn up the heat a little bit here, Dana and Kevin. We're going to ask you a little bit tougher questions. Might be more vulnerability. You never know. But you get to plead the fifth, but only once. So if my question off the top of the bat, you plead the fifth, then it's really open season. So let's see what you think. I love asking this question when we have a husband and wife or partnership or anything like that standing next to each other. So here we go. And I'm going to lead off with Dana. So Dana, I'm going to ask you this question. Kevin, get set, because I'm going to ask it in return to you. Dana, if I were to ask Kevin, what area of in your business could you be better at, what would he say?
Oh, great question. He would probably say, oh my gosh. I don't want to plead the fifth, but I'm like trying to think on my feet here. He would probably say that I need to Oh, I'm struggling here. Maybe I'm gonna have to plead the fifth, you guys, for a moment.
Well, how about I just put you on pause? How about I put you on
Put me on
pause?
pause.
I'm
Thank
going
you.
to
Okay,
ask
that's
Kevin,
perfect.
and then maybe based on what Kevin says, then you might have an
It'll
answer. So,
trigger something. I love it.
so Kevin, Dana thinks you can improve in at least one place. What would that be?
That I could improve in one place, probably my organizational skills. Like you don't want to, you don't want to put me in charge of putting together a task list for something.
Okay. Dana, do you have anything else yet?
Okay, yeah, that did trigger something for me. I mean, I would say probably the opposite, probably my like speaking skills and being able to get in front of audiences and talking about the business. So I'll do the exact opposite of his.
Well, that probably works out since you are a
Yeah.
husband and wife team that you figured out a way.
Exactly.
Everybody has their roles. That's perfect. And
Yeah.
your plead the fifth is still on the table.
Woo, God.
There you go. Okay. Well, okay. So, what are you sharing with your clients in terms of thinking as we come out of this COVID era? What do you think is kind of the biggest challenge that we're going to see in terms of working with employees, keeping them healthy and all that good stuff?
I think the biggest struggle that companies are experiencing right now is that transition back into the workplace. I think the last few years were really hard on the workforce, especially from a mental health perspective. We hear that a lot. It's definitely a hot topic. So being able to provide services that help people just feel better and navigate life's challenges is a huge part of that. So we've really seen that empathy come out for their workers.
Yeah. And I would say the other thing we hear a lot of employers concerned about is just the mental health component, and just making sure their employees are feeling good and have the right resources they need to continue to navigate coming out of COVID. So
I think it's Dana, I think it's so interesting that you mentioned that, because early on in the show, I think Kevin may have been the one who mentioned mental health. And here we've been talking about movement and physicality and all of that, standing desks, non-static stretching, all of that, which is incredibly important. Yet what I think we've really observed in these last 2 years is how important the mental health aspect is. What are some of the maybe 1 or 2 or 3 key issues that you're sharing in your platform with your clients on how to help employees deal with some of the mental health issues and strains that just life brings?
well, one of the most important areas we really emphasize and partner with them on is movement, because actually movement really supports mental health. And, like if you just like get up and you like do something, even taking a break from your desk, it's crazy how you feel better all of a sudden, like, oh, actually I do feel better. So movement is what we do a lot of messaging around. And then also when you're stiff and sore and you're not feeling good, you're kind of that achy feeling. And then plus you might be experiencing depression and these other things. It makes it worse. And so if we can really support these companies in having their employees take care of their muscles and joints and prevent that stiffness, it's also supporting the movement health of their employees. So they're actually incredibly related.
One of the other things I'll add, one of the things that we also heard a lot is that the camaraderie and the connection between people really went down during COVID as well. And so we started to do what we call movement challenges across organizations. So we'll have an organization with 3,000 employees in 30 locations, and we'll break up those locations on teams. And every time they participate in their activities, they earn points for their teams. And then we send out like a WWE style championship belt. And so it's just been a fun way to actually make engaging in the program fun, and it builds that camaraderie. So we've found that that's been a really good tool as well.
You've almost gamified it.
Yeah.
That's great.
You got to create incentives for sure.
It's great. So I think it's wonderful that there are companies that want to do this. They really, not only do they want to bring their costs down, but they want to make their employees happier, healthier, et cetera. Have you ever come across a potential client that you said, no, that's not going to work, and you had to walk away?
Yeah, I think when leadership is not bought in, we've had to walk away and say, it's probably not a good fit, because there are just companies where, they have, for whatever reasons, like their employees' health is not a priority, and it's never going to work if they don't care about that issue for their team. So we found that's maybe the one area where it's not a good fit.
So there's a rather large e-commerce supplier located somewhere in the Pacific Northwest that has a reputation for not giving their employees time for breaks. Are you looking at, do you never consider how you might change the culture in a place like that, or you just say, hey, hands off? Yeah,
I really think unless the leadership wants to do it and they're bought into it, it's really hard. You see employees saying, we want something changed, we're going to, create a union or whatever that is. But I really think leadership has to be bought in to make it work in a way, at least especially when you have an outside vendor. There's just no way an outside vendor can have that much impact without that.
So I'm going to ask one more hard one before, because I can't believe we're almost out of time, but I'm going to ask one more hard one. Dana and Kevin, you've heard about the plumber's house, right? That the plumber's house often has poor plumbing because that's, okay.
Yeah.
Like the shoemaker's children have no shoes, right?
Yes,
right.
That's right. The shoemaker's children have no shoes or bad shoes. So in your world, you're all about movement and physical exercise and mental health. For each of you, what's the one area that you would say, okay, this is like my one weak spot, my guilty pleasure, so to speak, where I'm not living up to it. So I'm going to start with Kevin first. Kevin, what is your shoemaker's children's shoes area?
As it relates to movement health?
Well, yeah, to physical health.
Yeah.
The stuff that you teach that you probably, I'd put it this way, the stuff that you guys teach that you say, well, I don't know if I do as well at that as I should.
Man, that's a hard one because it's so ingrained in every aspect of our life. Like just this past weekend, Dana and I, for our 17th anniversary, we did a half Ironman. And earlier this summer, we hiked Mount St. Helens with our two boys who are 10 and 12. And so we just every aspect of our life revolves around movement health and incorporating that stuff into our life.
So you're telling me on your anniversary, you did a half
I don't know what we were thinking, truly. No,
it was a great accomplishment. It was so fun.
Okay, so see, that did everybody else listening. You don't go on a vacation somewhere. Go do a half marathon. That's what you should do for your anniversary. That's really cool, though.
Just giving you guys ideas, just in case.
So let me ask you this: do you guys ever sit on the couch and binge watch anything?
You know what Netflix is? Have you heard of that?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we watch a lot of Shark Tank in the evenings, but I would say that ice cream might be our guilty pleasure.
Okay, good.
All right, good. I see they're human. They are human. Okay, good.
Dessert, for sure.
For sure.
All right.
Good.
Well, Kevin and Dana, thank you so much for being our guests here on the Shrimp Tank. For our listeners that want to get in touch with you or learn more about your company, how do they get more information?
Yeah, they can reach us by email or through our website and LinkedIn as well. We're in all those locations. So definitely reach out and we'll make sure we pass our emails on to you guys so people have those.
All right, fantastic. And you who are watching and listening, make sure you check out all the replays on I can't even talk today either, Dick. shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle, and wherever you get your podcasts, such as iHeart, Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, because damn, we are
ubiquitous.
We are. And follow us on our show's social media pages on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
Well, Kevin and Dana, this has been fantastic. I know we've been trying to get together actually in person. We will do that here in the very near future because we're not too far away demographically. So I'm looking forward to meeting you both in person. Linda, great to see you again. I'm sure we'll probably hook up somewhere in person at some point in the future too. So I'm looking forward to that. Everybody. Do what Linda said, like us on our Facebook page, because that's where we live stream every Wednesday, except for this coming week, because I'm flying back from Denver next Wednesday. Our show is going to be Thursday, September 22nd. Our guests will be Senna and Rich Wheeler of Senna Sea Wild Alaskan Fish. We're going to be talking about fish. Phil Simchich will be my co-host that day. In the meantime, everyone, please be safe, be well, and be prosperous, and make sure you get your movement in, because until next week, the shrimp is back in the tank. So long.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.